Well, greetings to each of you, and welcome to another episode of the Shakedown, a podcast about corrections for corrections and by corrections. I am your host, Aaron Dawson. Good to be with you again as we continue to move through the year 2024, as we continue to roll into season three of this podcast. And what an awesome ride it has been thus far, and looking forward to moving onward and upward. I appreciate y'all being along on the ride with us. Please, if you would, go to YouTube, search the Shakedown Podcast, and you'll see the list of the episodes there. Look, get in those, check those out. Uh, like them, subscribe if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, and let other folks know. We're really working this season at providing some very specific and useful information to you, breaking it down into those three things about corrections, for corrections, and by corrections. That about corrections, local news stories that relate to the corrections field, any case law that's coming down that's going to impact what we do. Want to let you know those are coming. As far as the four corrections, want to do some interviews and talk to some folks that have done and are doing the same things that you do every day, and are dealing with things that maybe you hadn't thought about, or maybe you dealt with them, and you want to know, okay, when I deal with them again, how can I do a better job of it? And then the last about by corrections, we want to get y'all involved in this podcast, whether it be sharing stories that you guys share with us. And I'll tell you, we're going to be looking for those specifically as we travel and go to the jail cons, jail con West, jail con South, and jail con Central. So make plans to go to those trainings, make plans to be at jail con, whatever region you're in. Awesome training, awesome time to interact, and uh, give me the privilege and the opportunity to talk to you and hear some of your stories, but also any questions that you all may have. If there's a question that I don't know the answer, as a good buddy of mine says, I don't know everything, but if I know everybody, then I can find the answer to your question. Today, I want to share a few news articles that I've come across over the last week or so. And as I looked at these news articles, it really began to remind me of how important it is that we as corrections officers keep in the forefront of our mind what type of environment it is in which we work. If you work at a McDonald's, or you work at a Walmart, or you work at a plant, or you're a delivery driver, or whatever the case may be, there are certain risks that go with that job. But those risks are usually not the result of somebody else. You're not having necessarily to watch out for somebody else. But in the correctional environment, we take people who statistically, it's shown that statistically 75% of those that are incarcerated at any given time are dealing with either um, borderline personality disorder or antisocial disorder. And so, what does that mean? Well, that means that you're dealing with people that tend to be very manipulative, tend to be very self centered, self focused, and are looking to work the situation, the circumstances, the environment to their favor. And they can get very aggressive if they're met with any resistance. You couple that with the fact of the explosion of mental illness across the country, and at the same time, there's an explosion of mental illness. You have the decreasing amount of available treatment to people in the community for their mental health issues. And so you put all that together in a jail setting, a setting that functions based on custody and control. It is our responsibility to make sure that that corrections environment, our facility, our agency, that the control within that facility, that's our job to maintain that. And as part of that, we have to keep eyes on. We have to have constant interaction with the inmate population, and we without fail we get in routine. You do head count, you do compliance checks, you do shakedowns, you serve meals, you transport to medical, you do all these things that go into a day-to-day operation, and it becomes routine, it becomes pattern, and we expect today to be a lot like yesterday. We just expect, we come into it with this expectation that things are going to be the same as they've been in the past. But we have to keep in mind, we have to keep at the forefront of our mind that, you know what? What if? What if something happens? I was reminded of that as I was reading this article out of a Milwaukee County jail. Um, first of this month, 1st of March, you had a sergeant at the Milwaukee County Jail that was going outside the facility, and you had an individual who had just recently been released from the jail, and they were out front, and so the sergeant went out, and in the process of talking to this individual that had just been released, this individual attacked that sergeant and ended up stabbing him multiple times, enough so that uh, they were very fearful that the sergeant would not survive. Thankfully, as of the last I've read, he is in stable condition, and it looks like he's going to survive. So that is awesome. But this suspect that confronted this sergeant outside the front of the jail, he has a long history of mental illness. I'm not suggesting that sergeant was being lax or lackadaisical in dealing with this individual. My point is that here's a man that's been released. He's not in jail anymore. You're just talking to him, but yet he responded to this sergeant in this way. And then there's another story out of Jones County, Iowa, where you have an inmate at a state penitentiary that took a belt, put a lock on the end of it, and attacked a corrections officer. The officer was injured, but is recovering again, thankfully. And the inmate, he ended up receiving more time added onto his sentence because of that assault. So again, that's awesome that he received that added sentence. But again, an attack on a corrections officer. And then another article that just blew my mind is out of the state of New York, out of the Auburn Correctional Facility. It says there were two incidences in one day inside this prison, and as a consequence of these two incidences, you had 8 corrections officers that were injured as a result of these two. And so it said the first was an attack by a group of inmates on officers in the mess hall. You had an officer that confronted an inmate, and he thought the inmate had contraband on him, so he was telling the inmate to put his hands on the wall so he could search him. And then the inmate became combative, and when the officer attempted to restrain him, other inmates joined in, and the officers responding to that, uh, they were involved in that altercation. And there's a few more officers that were injured in that. And then later, same thing in the mess hall. Um, they had an altercation. They had the inmates restrained. They removed them from the mess hall, and when they were placing them back in their cell, trying to remove the restraints, the inmates became aggressive, and there were some officers injured in that altercation as well. And so these are just three. I mean, and guys, you do some searching, you can see there's just article after article after article about situations in which corrections officers were attacked or were assaulted by inmates. So what's the point of this? Why do I bring this up? Well, I'm not bringing it up to try to be depressing. I'm bringing it up to try to say, oh well, this is a terrible job, and you just need to be filled with anxiety and fear and dread every time you walk in the door. No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is pay attention, pay attention. Read the room. You walk into a housing, you walk into a dorm. Before you go moving through that dorm, stop, look at what's going around. Listen, look at the inmates, see what their body language is telling you. What is the room telling you? And if it's a situation in which you walk in and man, something just doesn't feel right, something doesn't sound right, something doesn't look right, something doesn't smell right, don't just assume that you're off. Don't just assume that, I'm misreading it or I'm not understanding and just sail into it. Think about, when you walk past doors, when you walk in around corners or hallways, whatever, in the hallways or whatever the case may be, play the what if game. Play the what if game. I remember when I started in corrections, I watched an officer. He was walking through a dorm, And as he walked past cell doors in this dorm, as he walked past each door, he would just simply put his hand up on the door as he walked past it. And I watched him do that, and he'd be in conversation with somebody walking. And as he walked up on the door, he just put his hand on the door until he walked past it. And later asked him, I said, "Hey, what's with the hand on the door?" And he said, "Oh, that's simple." He said, "I don't want somebody to be inside the cell, whether accidentally or intentionally, come barreling out that door and hit me with that steel door. You know, it may injure me, it may knock me unconscious, it may just knock me over, but that puts me in a vulnerable position. And so I just put my hand on the door, keep that from happening." That's situational awareness. Guys, there's no question that our culture uh, needs you and I to do the jobs that we do. And we can only do the jobs that we do if we're safe, if we're situationally aware, if we read what's going on, and we respond in a manner that is safe. And that's to our benefit, and that's to the inmate's benefit. And so, guys, let me encourage you, let me challenge you. Pay attention to what's going on. And I know there's shifts, you get tired, you get wore out, you're done fighting with the day. It's been a rough day, it's been a busy day, whatever, and you just got this one last thing to do before your shift ends. So I'm just going to mosey in there and take care of this. Those are the times when it strikes. Those are the times. Keep in mind, we read the inmates on a regular basis, they read us. If you're an officer that's always on it and you're sharp and you're paying attention, and you walk into a dorm and you're not sharp, you're not paying attention, you look wore out, you look like you're dragging, that's going to be the time that inmate that's looking for a vulnerability is going to strike. And guys, I end every one of these episodes with staying sharp, staying safe, and staying vigilant. And that is what we're talking about. Making sure that we're looking, that we're watching, that we're listening, that we get a feel for the room, that we're doing things in a manner that allows us to be safe and allows the inmates to be safe. And we're being vigilant. We're watching consistently and constantly, uh, seeing what's going on, responding to what's going on, documenting what's going on. So, guys, I hope like I said, is an encouragement to you, a challenge to you. That's all we got time for today. But again, do me a favor, go check us out on YouTube. Search the Shakedown Podcast. Uh, like the episodes that you listen to, and man, they strike a chord with you. Man, go ahead and hit that like button. If you haven't subscribed to the show already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And when you hear something, let some of the other guys in your facility know, hey, man, I found this podcast. And man, I'll tell you what's got some good information. You need to check it out. Get the word out there, because the more this spreads, the more benefit that we can bring, hopefully, to bring some notoriety. Let people know what's going on, what you and I really do on a daily basis. Well, guys, as I said, that's all we got time for today. So until the next time, stay sharp, stay safe, stay vigilant. Godspeed.